Today we're unpacking PKI, public key infrastructure, in a way that's practical. By the end, you should be able to explain why PKI exists, describe how certificates and certificate authorities create trust, and sketch a deployment both on-prem and in the cloud. Then we'll do 2 step-by-step walkthroughs. First, how a certificate gets issued. Second, how a server verifies a certificate presented by a user or device. As we go, keep one idea in mind. PKI is less about encryption and more about identity at internet scale. Encryption is easy if you already know who you're talking to. The hard part is proving identity reliably, especially across thousands of services, devices, and teams. Imagine I claim to be your bank's website. How do you know I'm not an imposter? That's the core problem PKI solves. Trust when you don't already share a secret. Passwords help with people, but machines talk to machines all day. AP is, microservices, IoT devices, VPN clients, and passwords are awkward and risky there. What about a shared symmetric key? That works for 2 parties, but in a large environment, you end up with a messy spider web of secrets. Who holds which key? How you rotate it? What happens when one system is compromised? And how you revoke access quickly? PKI gives us a scalable answer. Each identity has its own key pair, and a trusted authority vouches for the binding between this identity and this public key. That lets systems authenticate each other and then negotiate encryption to protect the data. A PKI is a set of roles and rules for using public key cryptography. You start by generating, for each your identity, a key pair, a corresponding public key that you can share to everybody, and its private counterpart that you want to keep hidden. Then we have the CA, Certificate Authority. These certificates are signed by the CA as a form of digital signature. It's the digital equivalent concept that a CA has personally examined an ID and verified you are really who you say you are, and also that this particular public key is indeed yours. Many applications also have this first part being performed at an RA, or registering service, which enforces policy before any CAs issue anything. Then we need a trust store. The trusted roots are in your OS and possibly browser engine. At companies, you can put your internal root on devices that you own. And of course, certificates can be revoked without waiting for them to expire. 2 well-known examples are CRLs, revoked lists, and OCSP, a status checking protocol. A certificate is not magic. It's a signed data structure. It typically contains who the certificate is for, the subject, who issued it, the issuer, and a validity window. It includes the subject's public key, plus extensions that say how the certificate is allowed to be used. The subject's private key is always kept secret, usually on the subject local storage. The SAN, subject alternative name, is especially important. For websites, SAN usually contains DNS names like api.example.com. For devices or users, SAN may include other identifiers like UPNS or URIS, depending on your authentication design. The key point. The CA's signature locks all of that together. If someone edits the certificate fields, like changing the name, the signature check fails. That's how PKI prevents trivial forgery. The detailed rules for certificate fields and certification path validation are standardized in X.509/PKIX profiles. The most familiar PKI use is HTTPS. When your browser hits a site, the site presents a certificate, and your browser decides whether to trust it. In modern environments, we go further with mutual TLS, MTLS, where the server also demands a client certificate. That's a popular pattern for service meshes and zero-trust internal AP, is because now both sides prove identity cryptographically. For a more detailed look at service meshes, see my white paper, Ephemeral Certificates, Microservices, and Passwordless Authentication at link in the video description. PKI also powers certificate-based login for Wi-Fi and VPN, where a device certificate can replace a shared password. And outside networking, certificates enable S/MIME email signing/encryption and code signing, proving who produced the code and ensuring it wasn't altered. The common theme is identity plus integrity. A certificate lets you trust a public key, and once you trust a key, you can authenticate and protect communications. The real success factor in production isn't just cryptography, it's lifecycle automation. Issuing, renewing, rotating, and revoking without breaking apps. Let's walk through issuance step by step. Step 1. The device or user generates a key pair locally. Best practice is that the private key never leaves that device. If it leaks, the identity can be impersonated. Step 2. The device creates a CSR, a certificate signing request. The CSR includes the public key and the names you want in the certificate, like a DNS name, and it's signed by the private key to prove the requester actually holds that private key. Step 3. An enrollment process checks identity and policy. In an enterprise, that might mean: is this machine domain joined? Is the user in the right group? Does the request match an approved template? Step 4. The CA signs and issues the certificate, creating a unique serial number, setting expiration, and adding extensions like EKU. Step 5. The certificate is installed and used, like binding it to a web server port or using it for MTLS login. Now let's flip the perspective and walk through how certificates are used to verify identities when using MTLS. Step 1. The client starts the connection with the server. Step 2. The server sends its public certificate to the client, which contains the server's public key and a signature created by the CA, and the server requests the client's public certificate. Step 3. The client browser uses a set of known CA public signatures to see if the appropriate CA public key can decrypt the CA signature. If not, the certificate is considered invalid. If it can, the client begins further evaluation of the server's certificate. This same process is followed by the server to validate the client certificate. Step 4. Certificate on both sides usually follows the following steps. 1. Has the certificate expired? 2. Are the host names or IP addresses involved in the session request what are listed in the certificates? 3. Is either certificate in the CRL? 4. Both sides begin a proof of possession check of the subject private keys, typically by a key exchange using the client and the server key pairs. Previous steps only verified the public certificate, but the key exchange using the subject key pairs verifies that each side possesses the private keys associated with the exchange public keys. A PKI that only issues certificates and never maintains them will eventually hurt you, usually at 2 a.m. when something expires. Certificates have an end date by design, and that's healthy. It forces key rotation and limits long-term damage. But you must automate renewal, ideally well before expiration, and you need safe rollovers in apps and load balancers. Revocation handles the emergency case. If a key is stolen or a device is decommissioned, you want to invalidate the certificate before it expires. CRLs distribute lists of revoked certificates. OCSP lets a verifier ask for real-time-ish status without downloading a big list. Different environments choose differently based on scale, privacy, and reliability requirements. Key protection matters as much as certificate policy. Use OS key stores, TPMs for endpoints, or HSM-backed keys for CA private keys and high-value services. For broader key management guidance, NIST provides best practices frameworks. That's it for this video. If you learned anything, please remember to give us a thumbs up and subscribe. And until next time, be careful what you click.